Hi, Steve. Thanks a million for agreeing to meet here this morning. I just wanted you to look. I've had quite a few inquiries on Sicon projects for the last while from our Sage 200 customers. Okay, I've some of them who are on Sage 50 using sort of the projects module in Sage 50. Some of them inquiring about it for the first time in Sage 200, right? So, look, I wanted to have a quick discussion on that this morning. If you can give me a quick run through of the actual Sicon projects module, if we can keep it to that. Just so I can, I'm going to record this session. I'm going to pass it to some of the guys that have been inquiring, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, more than happy to do that. Thanks for thinking about us on the session today, Howard.
Good stuff. Well, look, it's just an overview. So look, I'll let you take charge of it. So, if you want to give me just maybe a brief beforehand before you bring up the product, where the product is at the moment, where it sits best, and then we'll get through it.
Yeah, no worries. So, well, nice to see virtually whoever's watching this. But yeah, Sicon Projects. For many years, it was actually known as job costing. And it's been probably one of Sicon's longest established solutions, but it's grown and evolved over the years. And the reason we renamed it to Sicon Projects is it's more now than just a job costing module. The way I tend to describe it to people is think of a glorified spreadsheet. Now, it's more complex than that, but we're tracking income from sales, so your revenue, we're tracking costs from purchases, any timesheets, so labor, and also any stock if you're using stock. Comparing that to budgets to give you essentially your overall profitability for that particular project. Now, our USP is because it sits inside of Sage 200. And in fact, actually, as you'll see when we go through the session, you won't know where Sage stops, Sicon starts, and vice versa. That's how integrated it is. What you end up with is 100% nominal to project reconciliation. So typically finance departments love this because every nominal transaction is actually recorded against a project. So you know everything's going to balance. Yeah. Where it's internal costs, we just have a non-applicable project, but it just means that you just know that you're nominal to job costing, for want of another word, kind of balance. It's extremely popular. It sits central actually to a wide number of our solutions, and it's utilized in a number of different verticals as well, from manufacturing, construction, right the way through to just project management type organizations. So yeah, I mean, certainly if you want to see a little bit about it today, I'm to share my screen.
And I can tie into what you're saying because it's quite varied where we're getting the actual inquiries on the Sicon projects, and in fact, it's probably it's probably more than nearly every second inquiry we have on Sage 200 that requires an element of it, of some description. And in some cases, some of the existing clients require something more than projects. And I know the projects module is a part of some of the other modules that are there as well, of course, right? So yeah, look, if you can give me an overview on it, take it that, we haven't seen this before. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. I'll fire at you while we get through it.
Perfect. Well, let me just share my screen, make sure the technology is going to be working today, Howard. So hopefully you can see my screen just here with the Sicon website. The reason I start here is, if any of your customers are interested in this, feel free to visit the Sicon website, drill down on projects, because actually there's screenshots and descriptions of the various features and functions. So it's very, very transparent on there. But Sage 200, now I've got every single Sicon add-on installed, so that's why my menu is far busier than your customers or yours would be, Howard. But the idea is, if we come down here to Sicon Projects, other than the fact it says Sicon on there, you don't know that it's not a Sage solution.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to start off with just a list view, and I'm going to filter my projects just here. And I think this is really quite a nice key one. So based on my project numbering here, and the dashboard, I've got a very quick view for all of the projects. And of course, I can use Sage's filters to say, well, what do we budget from a revenue perspective? Commitments. So we can start to show what you've committed to, but what you've actually invoiced. So commitments would be a sales order that you've yet to dispatch the goods or the services. Actual would be what you've invoiced. Budgeted costs, committed costs. So that could be a purchase order you've yet to receive or invoice. And again, we can view your actual. And then a bit of color coding: green good, red bad, and No color means you're ahead of the curve. So just a very quick dashboard, which of course you can, as with standard Sage, just move and add columns in. So just really trying to focus on the usability. Now, I'm actually going to pick up one of my projects here. And what I tend to say to customers is, you can make this as complex or as simple as you require. So often, if we go through all of the various options in here, customers will go, whoa, hang on, that's just too much for us. But we've actually, I mean, the easiest way, I could create a brand new project, click save if I've got automatic numbering, and I can start transacting with it. Benefit of that is it's very quick. Downside is your reporting, the granularity is less relevant. Whereas actually we've got some clients where you'll see some of the features, we can start to add structures, go really granular with the budgeting. And that works for them for their output. So, you know, it's not a one size fits all. Now, some of the key bits we can hold. So job numbers, I mean, I've got it automatic, you can switch that off, but you actually don't have to link to a customer. But if it is a customer project, then links direct to the sales ledger, pick your customer in. We can assign a project manager. We've even got analysis code. So this is a construction project, and just your Sage filters show me our live projects being managed by Corey that are construction. So again, very quick and easy. And I think the key bit, especially if you're coming from Sage 50, often clients where they're not using Sage's job costing module there, is they'll use the nominal as the breakdown of the project. This means as you migrate across, you can simplify your nominal structure. So now from a management accounts perspective, there's your P&L, because actually the project then becomes your project P&L. Okay. Other key things that we can capture, and this is where the reason we switched it over to projects. We've got things like objectives, risk assessment methods, attachments for any documents which are stored in the Sage attachments folder. So again, you can actually switch off a number of these tabs as well, something we added recently. So if attachments isn't relevant, just simply switch it off. But then we get down into the structure. So the option to be able to break a project down into phases, stages, and activities. So the example I tend to use would be house building. So we've got a project. Our phase would be Bury St Edmunds. Our stage might be Dublin. Sorry, phase might be Dublin as well. So within Dublin, we've then got Berkeley Court, Oakley Court, which is the area. And then the activity would be plot 1, plot 2, plot 3. And it means then we can budget against these project headers. So we can budget for materials, labor, etc. And I'll talk about this more in a second. But that then rolls up. So we can then start to see, well, what's our profitability for plot 1? So we know we've sold it for X amount of euros, and it's cost us X amount of euros as well. So there's a profitability. But then we can roll it up to Berkeley Court. We can roll it up to Dublin. But then we can look at our overall project, which includes the Bury St Edmunds plot as well. Now, again, I think this is really important. The product actually comes empty out of the box, pretty much. So it's built around your specific requirements. So the project headers, and the reason I'm focusing on this is when we get into the output, we're now going to start to see all this come together. So, I mean, you can just have two. You need one revenue, one cost header. So I've got materials, give it a name. Is it a cost or revenue header? But we can then start to set our default nominals. So often feedback from finance departments is, as we're processing invoices, we don't necessarily know the specific nominal that the project manager wants it coded to for their specific project. So by setting up defaults, as we add the project in, that's the project, the nominal code that's going to pull through. But we can actually start to override that on a project by project basis. So now all of a sudden there's value add, because as we're posting it through, someone like myself who's in the purchasing department just putting invoices on, I don't need to worry about the coding. I'll just make sure I code it to the correct project, and then it's going to record against the project, but the nominal as well. Now that's probably where I'm going to leave it to. I'm just going to move on to budgets. Again, you don't have to use budgets, and we've got clients done. We've got a number where certainly in the service sector. So we've got a contracts module, it creates a project, and all they're interested in is what's the revenue from the contract each month. So that just drops in. And then as they have to send spare parts out, there might be labor times, that's the costs. What's our profitability for that customer? You don't need a structure. You don't need to worry about budgets. It's just a vessel there for being able to report on it. But then you've got more complex projects where actually we do want to drill down. So if I look at the top level, we can see our original cost budget, and the current variance to that. And as I start to expand down to the phase, to the stage, down to the activity, we're getting more and more granular. And we can start to see things as, what was the original budget? Have we made amendments to the budget? And if you do amend it, you have to give a reason why from a predetermined list. Concept of planned purchases. So we've got a number of clients where at the start of the project, they know what they need to order. So let's front load that. So then we can see, well, what we've planned to order, what we've then ordered, which is committed, and then what we've actually invoiced or received. And then we can start to see the variance, even being able to budget against hours. And by the way, you don't have to sit there and type this in. We can import from spreadsheets as well.
That was a question I had for you. So I know the nice thing is here is that obviously, as I see it, you can see it's actually a part. It looks like it's a part of 200. Some people get worried when you mention modules that they feel it's an additional piece of software to add on again. So if I remember correctly, once the actual module is installed, depending on the access that you give to the users, it is available to everybody. So you're literally buying the module for the copy of Sage 200 you have. The imports into the system. So there's a variety of ways, as far as I remember, to import into the system. It can be a very manual thing where you can import them in, but you've also some other modules and facilities to handle that as well. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So I mean, option number one, as I said, click new project, and create it, start to do it on the fly. Second option is you can create templates. So if you've got different types of projects which follow similar structures, well, just create the project from a template and then tweak it for that individual. We've got estimates. So estimates, it's got to be careful. It's not an estimating tool where you can start to put dimensions, but basically it looks the same as what I've just shown you as a project, but you can actually copy structures from other projects in there and then convert it to a live. Or we can import projects from our templates. So just populate and as you go into each of these, there's examples which pop up and tell you what's compulsory and what's not. And then you can, you could still create a project from a template, but then import your budgets. So there's a very flexible option. The last, and this one's probably quite specific, but if we've got some clients where they've got their own third-party design system or whatever that would be, and they then want to create the project off the back of that, we do have a web API that, so long as the third party can write to it. So what we've tried to do is make it as flexible as possible. But I think what's really important here is it is off the shelf, which is what people want. They want it to, you drop it in. Yes, it's configurable, but you know that it's going to be scalable. So that's very much the ethos behind it.
Okay, and the same thing with the likes of timesheets, expenses directly into the project as well. You've actually got templates for those, and like you say, an off-the-shelf type of module that can do that too.
Yeah, certainly getting transactions in, and we'll focus on some of those in just a moment.
Sure.
You've got the transaction elements within Sage, but yes, you're absolutely spot on. We've then got some other modules, Sicon Approvals, which is a web-based utility where I can put my expenses on and link them to a project, get them approved before it posts through as a purchase invoice. Timesheets as well, being able to record my time against a project, get that approved. So then we're capturing the labor elements, requisition. So there's a lot with this. And again, the advice I tend to give is, certainly if I was looking at, I was moving, it doesn't really matter what solution I was moving from. When you're investing, whether you're moving from 50 to 200 and some of the Sicon elements, or whether you're an existing 200 customer adding this in, the question I would be asking if I was the other side of the fence is, how long is this going to grow for me? And I think that's where not only the Sicon stack, but the wider Sage ISV or tech partner community means there's that scalability. So actually 200 can grow with you as a business. But I'll tell you what, should we show you the output, Howard?
Please do, yeah.
Because I think that's always the key. Now, as I said, I've got other elements switched on. So I've actually got construction today. So there's some of the terminology which isn't going to be relevant, such as applications. But basically when you come in, this is what you're going to be seen with. So this project totals, I always think is quite nice. We can see what our budget was, our commitments, our actuals and our total. And actually we can start to drill down. So depending on the user, if you've got someone like myself, I'm just happy we're making a 50% margin. There you go. That's it. I just want to see the high level. But it might be yourself, Howard. You're going, well, hang on. Those costs, where have they come from? Where you can click on the blue hyperlink and start to drill down and see, that's all a bad example. Let's see if I can find one of these where I've done the receipt. So we can start to see the transactions behind that. So there was a purchase order. We can see the receipt, how many received, and what the invoice matched. You can start to see all of those transactions. We've then got all of those. So all of those revenue, expenditure transactions. And because we're in Sage, we can actually drill down to the invoice, or we can open up the purchase order. So it's not just a static report here. We've started to be able to drill down. So if you're sat in a meeting and somebody goes, well, where's that cost? Why is there an invoice variance? Well, you can start to drill down and get to that minutiae detail.
Get right there.
Again, we all love Excel, so just dump it out to Excel if you want to. But we've got revenue, expenditure, your timesheet labor, so all of those transactions, and you can see I always work really, really hard here. We've got any stock. Now, again, often customers go, well, we don't deal with stock. Well, that's fine. Just that tab will be empty. But it's perfect for those who want to see, well, what stock did we use? What was the quantity? What was the cost of that stock? Being able to drill down as well. Budgets, again, we've got visibility within the budgets. I don't need to go into that. But functionality, then, just to start to expand it. And this, I love this this option here. Everything we do is not us saying we know what customers want, Howard. It's feedback from customers. Now, I can't guarantee everything goes in the product because it is off the shelf. We try to fit stuff that's going to work for everybody. But I think it's important to listen to the customers. And this is a good example of a problem that was brought to the table. And this particular client, they had a digger in the corner of the yard. For 6 months, it was sat there and everybody walked past it thinking somebody else was using it, and finance were paying the invoice because nobody told them they shouldn't have hired it. So we've created a facility in the menu where you set up your hire, you can record your anticipated dates. You can create your PO. We actually create a separate line so you can't close the PO. So finance just keep matching the invoice to that, and you'll see the expenditure of that over here. You can record that you've received the hire. You can off-hire it and then confirm it's been received. But within here, you can then see all of the items that are on hire, the expected return, the status, is it still on hire? Has it been off-hired? Has it been collected? And then your duration and cost to date. So we're giving you visibility of something which is normally held and recorded in a separate spreadsheet. Just have it all within your Sage system. And of course, it's reportable as well.
Very good.
There's lots of other bits. The last one I just want to touch on, and then we'll put some transactions on, is this project summary. Now, again, this, you might have some of your customers when they look at this will say, we're never going to use that. Not a problem. But we've got some, they've got very small projects that last 1 or 2 weeks. You wouldn't need to go down to this. But those where you've got multi-period projects, you know, some clients I've dealt with, there's 3-year projects. So it's really important for them to be able to say, well, where are we? Where do we think we're going to finish? So, for example, here being able to see, and I am an eternal optimist, Howard, so we hope for a 64% gross margin. We can see our actuals and commitments and accruals, so where we're currently operating. But enabling could be a project manager, could be your QS, depending on whoever it is, to be able to go, well, okay, actually, for this particular area, what did we budget? What costs have we actually incurred at the moment? So in terms of our actual costs and commitments. And then if I don't think there's any more costs, are we coming in under budget or over? So if I said, actually, I think we've got another £25,000 worth of costs. Now, before I can save this, I have to give a reason why.
Give a reason in, yeah.
Now, there's 2 immediate benefits. Once that's saved, we've got where we tendered for, where we currently are, and where we think we're going to finish. And of course, it's like forecasting. It's always going to ebb and flow. But you get to the end of the project, you do your post-mortem. Well, why? Why did labour come in higher? Why did materials come in higher? Well, it's because of inflation, whatever that would be. But then from an accounts perspective, if we then say, well, we think we're 50% of the way through, there's our accrual figures. So as we update all of this, it's updating our project, excuse me, and then it can drop into its period end here. So cost accrual, completion accrual, finance can post their journals for both costs. There's a revenue side as well. And then that drops into what we call a CBR. So if I just refresh the data here, basically this is all of my live projects. in one single screen when that loads up in just a second, which is going to, again, just from a high level reporting perspective, and because you can dump this out to Excel, makes things nice and straightforward. But basically, we're going to see all of our year to date. So if I just filter this by Corey, we can see all of Corey's year to date. We can see all of Corey's current period and all of the overall. So as I go through, we split the two. So being able to see actual sales accrued, total actual accrued costs, and then your overhead margin. So it might not be in the layout that customers want, but straight away out of the box, everybody doing what they should do. All of a sudden, there's the information that we then want to manipulate.
So there's a couple of things here, right, in what you've shown me. So you can see it's a very scalable solution depending on the type of business and the way they manage their actual projects. So it can be kept to at a very simple level, and it can also be very granular as well in what you're doing in the system. So look, I guess, for any of the guys that we're talking to, it's all down to scoping all that stuff out and making sure that we fully understand, and that's something that we sort of pride ourselves on, is that we can actually do that and then work in conjunction with you guys to deliver this. So, but from what you show me there, the scalability I can see, is quite attractive to our own customers, definitely.
No, absolutely. And I think, and it's always difficult because, of course, if we're doing a one-to-one and we've done that a one-to-one session, you talk through very quickly, you can understand how they're currently using it, what they're doing. So you can pitch it. We're trying to cover everything, but I'm glad that's come across. I mean, the last thing I wanted to just touch on and then see if there's any other questions from you, Howard, is just how easy it is with the transactions. So certainly those on Sage 50, if you've seen Sage 200 already, then hopefully this will make sense. Those of you on Sage 200, again, you'll start to see just how, from a day-to-day processing perspective, how minimal the impact is. So what do I mean by that? So for example, a purchase invoice, straightforward purchase invoice, standard Sage invoice. The only difference is you'll have a Sicon project analysis tab, and you can see here it's defaulted to my non-applicable project already. So if this was a utility bill, I could just process it through. Now, what we do is we lock down, so you can't change the nominal here. You're changing the nominal there. So all I do is I find now I could search for the project number. I know it's my Dublin hotel. And because there's no other project name in there, which is has those letters in that order, it's found the project straight away. I can say where in the project do I want to put the cost, what my project header is. And if we just keep an eye here as I tab through, because I'd overwritten the nominal, that's now pulled through that nominal. But again, I can tweak it if I want to, and I can put an amount in. I could split this across multiple projects, multiple nominals. It could be the same project, all the usual gubbins that you'd expect. But as I post this from the single transaction, if I look at the Sage transaction analysis, well, our transaction's now sat in here, ready to appear on the relevant suggested payment. And in terms of the nominal, we can see the nominal splits. So that's going to hit our P&L. Lovely. But we've also got a Sicon Projects tab. So from here, I could drill and jump up to the project. But actually, if I come back to my project inquiry here and just refresh, from that single input, if I come down to my expenditure, there's, where is it? Somewhere in here, there it is, ECS tuning. There's my invoice now, sat there against the project. And I think this is really key because, again, often the challenge that comes to us is all of this is done in a spreadsheet, and it doesn't matter how efficient you can be, there's going to be a delay from the invoice coming into finance and you updating your spreadsheet. So this instantly, it's live. And actually, that's probably a really good point because, I mean, Howard, I know with every project, there's no point putting data in if you can't get it out. So certainly from my experience of working with yourselves, that's a huge part of delivering that information. But because all of this is sat in Sage's single SQL database, you guys can then start to put that onto reports, can't you?
Yeah, well, look, like I say, the attractive thing about this is its scalability, but also the fact that it's endemic to, or it's interconnected with nearly everything else on the system. And you know, what I'd like to cover with you on another session is how the actual Sicon documents relates to it, because that will factor in very strongly against your purchases and tying it up with the likes of the Sicon projects as well. But you know, it's great to see that. You know, there's quite a bit we can actually do with the projects and talk to our customers about, and gives us a lot of flexibility. I see some other things mentioned in there, which I'll talk to you about again. But you know, it's definitely an attractive offering, particularly as it looks like it's just solely part of Sage 200 really, and just sits in on a lot of the dialogue screens as well.
Well, it is. I mean, again, just coming into standard Sage processes. If, for example, I want to do a nominal journal, so you come into Sage's. Oh, sorry, that's my mouse. One of those Apple Magic Mouse, and it's doing what it wants. But as we come in here, so you've got Sage's create journal entry. Can you see we've got the project and project header there? So
Yeah,
we've that's the level of integration. If you come down to do your prepayments and accruals, we've got the project on the prepayment accrual. So anywhere where there's that nominal element, it's integrated in. So it means you can journal against a project, and then to make life easier as well, as you come through into transaction entry, you can issue stock there. We've got other functionality. Some people, it's called self-billing invoices. So if you've got if your suppliers submit timesheets, and then that's what their invoice is generated, the system can cater for that. If you're the type of organization who, based on, you work on time and materials, so based on the time recorded and the material costs, that's what we're going to invoice the customer with a margin. Again, we can deal with those scenarios. We spoke about timesheets here, so different ways of getting time in. Well, we've got an employee screen where you set your employees up, cost rates. So you put your time in, and what that's going to do. So if I pick, I'll pick myself, might as well. I can start to add in the time in here. Good. We spoke about other options there, but what that's going to do is that's filling in my central timesheet. That's going to post and multiply those hours by my cost rate. So we've now got that cost rate against that. But for those customers who use Sage 50 payroll to pay your employees weekly, well, whilst we don't post everything directly into the payroll, two reasons for that. I mean, I spent nearly 10 years in the enterprise payroll sector, and I never once came across a payroll professional who wanted data hitting their payroll system without some level of control. So, and two, because Sage 50 for us, trying to get to the database level, it's not the same as what we've got with Sage 200, but actually you can extract. So we do pull through the pay elements from Sage 50 payroll, and then you can export that data in the same format that the Sage 50 payroll wizard likes, imported in, and that's a way then of getting your timesheets in, but also being able to pay your staff.
Now, just to point out as well, that's the UK payroll as opposed to the ROI payroll, because the ROI payroll is slightly different. But we have done some work before where we can actually extract some of the stuff out of it. So that's something, if anybody wanted to talk to us, they can, you know, I'll chat to them individually on that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No. I think that's a really good point, and it does tie back into the projects as well, where all of the figures, as we know in a Sage company, will always denote to base currency. So if your Sage company is in euros, the base currency is going to be euros, or so you might have a separate company that's in pound sterling. What we're able to do on the projects is we use Sage's exchange rates, but you can have, so if my demonstration environment here is pound sterling,
yes,
but I can have a project that's going to display all the values in euros. So it uses Sage's exchange rate. So again, we've got clients with some projects now, of course, from an accounts perspective, everything's pound sterling, but they want to see the project and all the figures in euros. So it's those little things which we've learned and added over a period of time.
Can I ask you a question, actually?
Yeah, go for it.
Just that, not to get into this other module that you have currently. You have an intercompany module there as well, which allows you to sort of manage transactions on both sides of, you know, entities that that they own themselves, the customers would own themselves. But Can you factor in other companies that you've got, other registered companies within the actual projects module in organizing, in marking transactions against each, purchasing, for instance?
So you mean splitting that so you've got multiple trading entities within your Sage environment? Yeah. Yes, you can.
Better than I did.
No, it's that's fine. I wanted to make sure I answered the right question. Yeah, I mean, what we've done from an intercompany perspective is we've actually added in functionality for Sicon Projects. So what you're able to do is, if I create a project in company A, I can actually copy that same project to company B. Now, reporting wise, of course, they're separate databases, so they're going to be independent. But that does mean as we put a transaction on, so if, for example, there was a bill that came in from a supplier into company A that we want to apportion to the same project in company B, absolutely. You can flag the transaction, pick that, and then pick the projects where you need to. Even down to, and we're probably getting away slightly from projects, but I think it's quite key. We see this more and more, certainly from an intercompany, where company A sells to their customer, but they buy items from another from their UK company, for example. So we can create sales order, purchase order to sales order. Of course, we can link that to a project level if we needed to as well. So this again is where we start to. I mean, I refer to it as an ecosystem. You know, there's lots of us, you know, kind of in there. You know, we've got great relationships with the competitors as well, because you know we all coexist within the Sage 200 ecosystem. But it's all these little tools which at the right time start to give your customers that true ERP.
Yeah, and it like the question is born out of inquiry. You know, we're coming across it more and more. We have more and more inquiries around projects, and although we deal with Sicon projects, that's the reason why I wanted to get a better look at it in case I'm missing anything from, you know, any of the new features. And you know, particularly, you know, it's nice to see that you mentioned that you've made that adjustment, you know, for the likes of the intercompany module, because without this session I wouldn't have known that. So look, all beneficial. Is there anything else that you know, did you want to tip your hat to on the projects bit before we finish up, or?
No, I mean, a lot of it then comes down to specifics. I suppose the only thing I would just jump on is something we added probably 2, maybe 3 versions ago. Are these concept of dashboards. Now, as we know, there's a lot of options out there. There's ODBC reporting, certainly Mark and the team at Reveal as well. You know, they've got a fantastic solution that's coming into the 200 space as well. But we did add these these options. And again, this is something which, if the customer's got IT skills, so being able to write SQL, they can fill the boots. Or if not, I know you guys can do that as well. But the idea behind these dashboards is, and I don't know if I've got any examples in here. No, I don't at the moment. But you can have up to 4 quadrants, but actually you can maintain these dashboards. And as you add in, you can say, well, there's going to be a number of fields. It's a list view. It's a pie chart. But everything's driven by SQL. Now, I can spell SQL. That's about as far as my knowledge goes. But if you've got somebody who understands to do that, they understand relational databases, write SQL query in here, validate it, and then it will drop. And because you can have, if I just come away from that, we actually include 10 of these dashboards. And by the way, this doesn't just have to be project information. These can actually display right the way from that single Sage database. So it's just a nice entry level into that. Certainly, you know, there's far more bells and whistles with the likes of Reveal or what you guys could do with Power BI and that. But within here, it's just a nice add-on.
We can write some SQL queries ourselves and using what you have here anyway.
No, exactly, and they start to look really nice. I mean, again, I will just show one example. It's not related, but just to give an example of that. You know, here's just, I appreciate it's a different module, but just some list views there where you know, with a nice bar chart and stuff as well. So again, what we've just tried to do is make it as accessible as possible.
Excellent.
And I think the one word, if anybody sits on a demonstration with me, that they'll hear time and time again is options. And I think that hopefully what's come across is there's lots of options here. There's lots of different ways of doing things. And just because you start one way doesn't mean you can't then expand on that.
And look, what we'll do is, look, if you don't mind, I've recorded this session. I'm just going to pass it on to a couple of people who have been inquiring about it. Okay, but what we'll do is we can obviously talk to you on one-to-one sessions if we need to get into the detail of the requirement for a particular individual, right? So look, Steve, I think that's great. Look, thanks very much for that. A lot of it I've seen already, but more importantly, there's some items in there that I can definitely take away and talk to our clients about. So look, really appreciate your time. All right, if that's okay, and that's it really. Thank you.
No, well, thank you, Howard. Really appreciate you allowing showing an interest in the solution, and yeah, happy to jump on one-to-one sessions where needed.
No problem. Thanks again. Take care. Bye bye.